you've gone from having these amazing business models to, okay, this is your first existential threat really in the last decade. So I think that's why you're seeing markets be as volatile as they are.
Now, nerves about the future of software have eased a little in today's session, but is the fear that AI will take over justified?
Look, I think it is, but it's more about there being a lot more uncertainty around it. So, I believed that the software guys were pretty well placed with AI. I thought that they would be able to use AI within their own workflows and tools to still have a credible product that they offer. And indeed, you saw that with a lot of them that offered AI features increasing the amount of users late last year. But it's funny how fast things are moving at the moment. So, you mentioned Claude. The capabilities that some of these large language models, and I'd say particularly Anthropic's who own Claude, they have gotten so much better and in the space of weeks. So literally, my co-founder Thomas Rice at Minotaur Capital, he's basically coded a whole scheduling assistant and a whole bunch of other AI agents over the Christmas New Year's period. Now, that was literally 3 weeks that we have, I think, another 4 agents that we use within Minotaur Capital.
Yeah, and I read Thomas Rice say that this was a step change from software to AI, and he felt it was a visceral one. How have you approached your software investments?
Yes, that's right. So we were actually long software, and particularly Atlassian. I feel like Atlassian is a workflow tool that's really embedded in what organizations are doing. And they introduced AI features that they named Rovo. And they found that the organizations that were using Rovo, they were more likely to increase the amount of products and revenue generated from those customers than the ones that weren't. So that was a pretty good indicator or a leading indicator of how AI might help them. Now, as I said, because of the changes that have happened in literally the last couple of weeks, and in particular, there's 2 things to think about. So firstly, there's these things that have been released for developers called skills. And that's literally, you can go to Claude and there's a marketplace for having a skill that can help you with your emails and going through your emails. I think most people would want that skill. There's a skill for helping you schedule things in your calendar. You can create these agents very easily, like you or I could do it. And I think that that's really threatened a lot of the software names, because if you can create certain pieces of the software tools that you used to rely on easily yourself, then that moves the whole build versus buy argument. So, a lot of people will decide to build it themselves rather than buy. Now, I think that's a weak argument in terms of enterprise, like replacing their software needs. But what it does mean is that competitive pressures are going to intensify. So if you can build these things more easily, then there'll be a whole bunch of startups that build a whole bunch of features that already exist for the incumbent, and they can release them out cheaply. So I think you might see some margin pressures for these guys. And then the third thing is per seat pricing. A lot of these guys, they price on a per seat basis, and that made sense when you had lots of humans doing the work. But if you move to lots of agents doing the work, you'll probably naturally see the amount of seats decline, which means your pricing or your revenue top line is going to decline. Now, I'm not saying that happens for all of them. I think it's going to happen unevenly. But for us, that uncertainty and the dispersion of outcomes meant that we sold out of our Atlassian position, and we've actually gone net short software. So we're actually betting against software at this point in time.
Well, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says fears AI could replace software and related tools were illogical, and time will prove itself. What do you say to that?
I think that is the case with certain parts of software. So if you've got like a heavy data moat where you've got unique data sets, or if you're very embedded into the workflows of an enterprise and you're very, hard to replicate or replace, I think that's naturally the case. But I saw there was a tweet from, I don't know if you know Deidre Bosa, but she's a CNBC anchor, and she tweeted about how she'd been Claude pilled, which is the new sort of meme name for people who go and develop their own software. And she said that she basically developed all the features of Monday.com, which is a very popular workflow software tool. So I think that there are guys potentially like Monday.com that will find that their features get very easily replaced. And there are guys that have heavy data moats and potentially more climate compliance and regulatory moats as well. So something like, a Workday comes to mind, which is this HR software, and you need to know, HR laws in different jurisdictions really well. That's potentially a more defensible moat. But to be honest, I put those two names out there, but we don't know. Across the space, we're unsure of, at this point in time, what's more defensible and what's not.
You mentioned margin pressures for the software companies. What about the risks or the opportunities for AI companies? I mean, will they be able to monetize this kind of tool, even if corporates do migrate toward them sufficiently?
I think that there's opportunities for that, and whenever there's a movement in technology, you often see new jobs, new opportunities, new revenue lines be generated as a result of that technology. And I don't think we know where we're at in that cycle with AI yet. Obviously, the tech guys are spending very heavily on AI capex. So, Google came out with their result recently. They increased their AI infrastructure capex from, the guidance was 175 to 185 billion. That is 50% higher than it was last year. So that was a bit of a shock. They actually beat, and this has been a bit of a thematic out of the Mag 7 earnings recently. They've all sort of beaten operationally, but AI capex spend and I guess margin pressures are worrying people. And so despite the beats, you've seen most of it, been a bit of a mixed performance, but a lot of them have actually fallen.
It's almost ironic because we're talking about the potential for AI to eat up the software space, but at the same time, investors are worried that it's not going to deliver on productivity or profitability fast enough.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't actually thought about that sort of, hypocrisy or conundrum, but I think it's all a question of timing. I think that there's an expectation that AI is going to lead to a lot more productivity and probably a lot of expense reduction. I think people are mixed on whether there's actual revenues that are generated out of this, but definitely on the expense reduction side, I think people are pretty well set on that. But I think it's a question of timing. So a lot of this capex is being driven right now. Where does the return on investment hit? And the issue for a lot of these software companies and SaaS companies in particular is, they were seen as these amazing business models. They had, recurring revenues, really high margins. A lot of them were seen as hard to replace. You've gone from having these amazing business models to, okay, this is your first existential threat really in the last decade. So I think that's why you're seeing markets be as volatile as they are.
And what does a company need to do to win over investors in the AI space? You mentioned the owner of Google, Alphabet, really smashing analyst profit expectations and doubling its capex spending, but its shares came down. Is it spending too much?
I think that you need to see the proof points come through on a more, consistent and, you need to see this be delivered over, say, 3, 4, 5 quarters rather than 1 or 2 quarters. And I think you also need to see the AI capex maybe drop a little. So at the moment, people are wondering, are you spending to stay, competitive with your competitors at the moment? Is it a competitive need rather? And that needs to shift to, okay, is this spend not just to ward off competition, but can you actually generate some revenues and some cost savings off the back of that? I think you're starting to see that happen around the edges, but I think you need to see those proof points be validated a lot more. And yes, as you said, Alphabet smashed expectations, but I think you need to see them do that consistently. And Google has actually been seen more at the forefront of this. There was a lot of fear around search being really under threat by AI, and they've really answered that by things like, when you search for things in Google, you now get an AI answer first and then all the search results second. So they've answered that with some of the products that they've put forward. But I think the operational answer to AI has been mixed around some of the other Mag 7 players.
Armia Rosenberg, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.